Okay, couldn't get this rim off the axle. I even took the axle off the trailer, brought it to my son-in-law, had a set of acetylene torches, including a tiger torch. Wouldn't get it off. So this is what I came up with to take the tire off. Very simple. Just a 1.5 by 1.5 square tubing, 2 threaded rods into the rim, a 2 by 2 square tubing, and just push till the bead came off. Now there's room for putting in a tube if you want to, or maybe we're going to try and take the whole tire off. Luckily, I got that piece of junk from the junkyard, and we're going to put it on. It looks like it's a little hole there anyways. No dry rot in it. Okay, to simplify it, I use this knife. Please don't use a cheap alpha knife for this kind of stuff. That'll break and cut you type of thing. Anyways, cut the inside here. This tire was dry rot. It's garbage. So there was no point in getting fancy. Just need to get fast, dirty, get it done. Am I right? I'm old school. I wish I could. Okay, with the first part of the rim on, it's pretty easy. Everybody can do that. Now I lubricate the rim. That's the hard part. Okay. To seal the bead, everybody's a little different. I use these simple air guns. They're pretty popular. You take the tip off of it, and then the valve goes right in, and you have straight air into the unit. No valve in the way. So what I have to do is take the valve off the new valve stem. Valve out of the valve stem, don't want to lose that. Here. Watch your fingers, don't put the fingers between the rim and the tire. Works just about every time. Well, pretty much every time. Problem is, there's no tires available within short driving distance today. Maybe next, if it doesn't hold air, I'll look at getting the tire from someplace. living out in the country. You can't just go into town. Whenever you need a part. Where I did work, there's no leak. Now the tire seems to be holding air. There was a slice in the tire, but not all the way through. So what I did is I glued a tire patch on the inside, and believe it or not, I used some Gorilla Glue tape, duct tape, inside. And not that it's going to hold, the Gorilla Glue tape is going to hold air, but the thing is it's going to give some strength to the sidewall. It only has to last a week, two, or hey, who knows, it might be on there for a year. I don't know. In the meantime, it's holding air, it's doing good. And the price was right, $1 or nothing. It was at the dump. The old tire was dry rot all the way through, and so is the tire on that side. This tractor cost me $100. It's been sitting for a long time. What I did to it, the underneath was rusted solid. Everything had to be loosened up, all the gears and the pulleys and so on. The PTO was locked in neutral. I didn't know about that feature. It's this button here locks it in neutral so that you can push the tractor around. So I ended up taking the whole PTO axle off, tried to free this wheel out to remove it from the axle, even with a torch, and I couldn't get it off. But that's where I found out that I didn't have to change the axle, I only had to loosen that off. I did replace this little ignition igniter, and she ran for about a week, for about a half an hour, and then died. The spark plug is a little on the white side, so I don't know if I have to also replace the coil. I am replacing the carburetor, but that's my fault. I broke the pin that's holding the float, so pretty much. So another thing that I did wrong today, I jacked up the back end, and gravity fed gas from the tank through the pump, through the carburetor, through the exhaust, and onto the floor. So I got to be careful not to smoke around here right now. So quite a few things. All the wiring's been checked. Everything works. Everything was running. So $100 tractor. And believe it or not, it doesn't take long to add up. I've already put about $300 into it. This starter wasn't working. These starters, if you don't use them for 6 months or so, the brushes are guided by a steel bracket, and the steel rusts, and then the brushes don't move. So a lot of people end up wondering why they change the starter every time they have to use the tractor. Take it apart, loosen it up, put a little lubrication in there if you want to. And this, I've been cranking and cranking, that starter works 100%. So I didn't have to buy a starter. I will have to buy a battery. But aside from that, so what I did with this tractor, and the reason I bought it, I don't know if this is still running, is I had this tractor here, which is fini kaput no good no more. And that one for $100 is a much bigger tractor with the hydraulic transmission, bigger motor, and so on. And I put the rototiller option on it. So it uses a B belt now. One of the things I've done, I doubled up the springs, put 2 springs on here, and it powers now from the lever that usually lifts the deck for the lawnmower up and down. So now the lawnmower lever lifts the rototiller unit up and down. And that's it. That runs right off the PTO. You flip the switch for the PTO. With the previous Craftsman tractor, once you started it, that's it. This thing was turning whether you wanted to or not, as long as the motor was running. But now I can turn off the rototiller from working when the motor is running, so I can drive around and I can lift the rototiller off the ground. So it's a nicer setup than I had before for sure, and it was only $100. A lot of labor, not too much money in parts, but it still added up. And, well, you get what you pay for. Thanks for listening to me.